What we're going to do now then for the Safeguarding Inquiry-Based project is we're just going to go through the assignment, and I'm ably assisted here by Nick, Kaylee and Laura, who are your audience, and it's making it much easier for me to stand here and talk just now, so thank you ladies for being here. Right, we're going to look at the portfolio for the inquiry-based project, which is 70% of your module mark, 3,000 words. What I would like you to do is just check on the learning outcomes. You're asked to analyse the impact of developing knowledge of safeguarding issues. So you will be scrutinising your values and the justice and rationale of your practice, which actually fits in exactly with what we've just been talking about with the action research model. Propose solutions and models of good practice for effective partnership working. Yes, you will be able to propose those solutions and models because you will have a really, really clear idea of the way in which you practice and why, the ethical stance. Apply underlying concepts of empowerment and self-efficacy beyond the context first studied, i.e., the context first studied is safeguarding. It's not just about child protection, it's about children being empowered, children feeling that they have efficacy and agency and control in their own lives. How are you going to bring that out? Now, you might be doing a whole range of different topics with the children you're working with. You might be doing, for example, Kaylee, road safety. Now, road safety is the context that you first studied. So you'll have information in there about road safety. But actually, you're not just looking at whether or not you can teach children how to cross the road. That's the surface. This isn't about that. This is about you looking at empowering children to take control of their own lives and giving them the sense of self-efficacy to regulate their behaviour, their own behaviour, and take responsibility. So that is you looking at the issues of safeguarding beyond the initial project. And that hopefully will give you some idea of the depth that you need to be discussing. Because we're not just talking about impact on provision, we're talking about behaviour change and understanding of behaviour change. Given that it's all happening at quite a deep level, it stands to reason you're going to be applying principles of ethics to your own practice. So please include somewhere in your work an ethics statement and some discussion about the ethics of what you're doing. And you're going to assess the impact of your own professional role and the contribution of other professionals. So you'll be looking at your colleagues, but there may be some other people that you've been in partnership with that you are including in there as well. Right, so task criteria. Undertake a piece of action research in your setting in relation to working with professionals, parents and carers to safeguard children. You probably will also be working with children to safeguard children. So remember they are your partners too. Evaluate the structure and practice and consider this within the context of the principles of the EYFS, Educare, Ofsted framework, etc. All of those external frameworks for safeguarding. And as a result of your evaluation, identify an aspect of practice. So what you will do then, getting into this, is that you're going to start off with your introduction. Now, as always, your introduction needs to have some way of leading into what you're going to do. So you will have some overview of the concept of safeguarding that you are going to be following. Okay? And at this, at this point, you need to define how you are going to understand safeguarding and what is the context that you're going to be applying to your model. So, for example, if you're talking about empowerment of children, you're going to be looking at the context of how children who are empowered are less likely to be victimised because they stand up for themselves, they feel that they have agency in their own lives, etc. If you're going to be looking at road safety, the context is going to be the importance of self-regulation and risk-taking for children and its role in safeguarding. So you're going to look at your context, all right? That will lead you nicely into identifying the specific area. investigation or for research. And what you do here then is you conduct an overview or conduct an audit or a review of practice. All of this sounds quite familiar, doesn't it? You will need to gain evidence then. This is where you do your information gathering. And as we discussed a few minutes ago, the kind of information that you gather will depend entirely on the subject that you are going to interrogate. Okay? So if you're talking about, what are you going to talk about, Nick? Sorry, you're going to talk about mobile devices. Mm-hmm. What you'll be doing is you'll be reviewing policy, you will be gathering evidence on parental attitudes, you will be looking at evidence of what you see in practice, you'll be asking staff about their attitudes, you'll be asking the children about their attitudes. Because what you might find at that point is that what parents say and what they do are two different things. No? It might be that the policy says something that is then not adhered to in practice. But that very, very strict review, that very rigorous review, will reveal to you the underlying values that you're going to be looking at and the ethics of what you're going to be looking at. Okay? So, for example, no mobile devices and things, but actually, we take photographs and use mobile devices in our settings all the time. So we have to think about those sorts of things. Okay? So a review of practice, and you need to gather some evidence of things. And you will analyse the evidence that you have, be it questionnaires, observations, policies, whatever. There will be deep analysis of that. Right? But remember, the actual research is to do with change of belief and change of social action. So your colleagues and your partners' perspective is going to be important, and you're going to try and understand where they're getting their direction from as well. Right. Okay, so as a result of that, you will suggest an explanation for current practice and identify areas for development. And that's a bit like the analysis section of a reflective cycle, because you really think about why everybody's behaving in a particular way or why things are working in a particular way, and you try and sort of unpick it. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to develop something that is much more logical, much more coherent, and everybody buys into. So your areas for development might be something like written policy that's weak. It might be something like the fact that you are all working in a particular way because Ofsted have told you to and make it a focus for your next inspection, but nobody really has any great understanding of it. It might be that people are not in agreement with what's happened. There might be a whole host of things. But you will explore that in depth and understand why you practice in the way you do and why you're focusing on several particular areas for development. Okay? Somewhere in here, and as you can see, there isn't a great amount of structure to this, because obviously your actual research projects can be very, very individual to you. Somewhere in here, you're going to have a discussion about task interdependence, i.e. team working, shared values, and motivations. And you're going to assess the impact that has on the way you're working. And if you think that there are parts of your partnership or parts of your team that need support or information or change in a particular direction, you will put that in as part of your action research model, because you need to be able to demonstrate that people have changed their opinions as well and that you're working more effectively. And that may well be the opinions of the children. Remember that children are part of your partnerships. So you need to get some idea of their understanding of things and what they want to change. Right? So then you will have, because remember, in accordance with the action research model, you will have some strategic actions and reference, as a result of this inquiry, reference it in terms of the action research model. So you will have some strategic actions which you put in place, and when you put them in place, evaluate them. Okay? That may start off another action. That may mean that you implement something else as a change. You may decide that at the end of it, you have people still not believing in a certain thing, so you need to do something else. I don't know, I can't predict that for you. That will be different for different people. But somehow you get to the end of what you're doing and feel that you have reached a point where you understand what you are doing, and you understand why you are doing it, and you understand why the people around you are acting in the way that they do. So you will be able to provide, at this point, a rationale and judgment about your success, about the success of what you are implementing. You will be able to make some sort of ethical statement somewhere in there, but I'll put it at the bottom here in case you haven't got to the ethical position by this point, because remember, it is a learning outcome. And importantly, you're going to have some way of measuring the change that you've made. Now again, the way in which you measure the change will depend entirely on the action research project that you have done. So if it's looking at mobile phone devices, the measuring change is going to be in a tally chart of the number of times you see people in a week with their mobile devices within the setting. The measurable change might be wording in your policy. It might be in repeating a questionnaire that you did before and after to see how people's attitudes and understanding of the issues has changed. That might be your way of measuring. If you're measuring change in terms of road safety, which is what you had thought, then the measure could be in observing children crossing the road, or children teaching their parents and giving them a certificate because they have demonstrated their knowledge by doing that. Okay. If you're doing emotional articulacy in children, it might be measuring a change in your knowledge about the way you discuss things with children, or it might be measuring a change in the practice about the way you support children in expressing their feelings by having implemented a feelings board, or get children to have the feelings tree. And were you here when we had the session where Dawn talked about the feelings ladder, where children came in and put where they felt on the ladder? You know, those sorts of things. They're measurable change, okay? But you will have to decide what you're going to measure, and you're going to decide how you measured it at the end, because your final thing, of course, is going to be an evaluation and a statement of where you are in terms of your values and beliefs, the rationale of your practice, and your safeguarding. And that's all there is to it. It's as simple as that.